All right, now we are ready to start solving some equations. And so the difference between an equation and an expression is this equal sign right here. In the previous lesson, we did not have any equal signs, so we were not solving anything. Now we are solving. And so there is an equal sign, and our final answer won't just be a simplified expression. It'll be x equals a number. We're actually looking for what x equals. A lot of people confuse simplifying expressions with solving equations. And so here is where we were simplifying expressions. Notice there is no equal sign, and I did not tell you what the variable equaled because I'm not going to add my own equal sign. Here, there are equal signs in every situation, and so we are actually trying to find what the variable equals. All right, so my first step is to always draw a line where the equal sign is, and then we are trying to isolate the variable. And so in order to do this, make sure the left side of your equation and the right side of your equation are as simple as they can possibly be. That's why we practice simplifying first. And so if there are like terms to combine over here, combine them. Same over here. If there are parentheses, get rid of them. Simplify each side and make them as simple as they can be before you start moving things to the other side of this barrier. All right, so the left side, 3x plus 5, is as simple as it can be, so we are ready to isolate this x term. And so the first thing I have to get rid of is this 5. A lot of people try to get rid of this 3 first. You can't do that. You have to take care of the number that is not attached to your variable first. And so your first step is to subtract 5 because there is a plus sign. The inverse operation would be subtraction. And so subtract 5 from both sides, and these would cancel out, leaving 0. And so now I just have a 3x on the left side, and 8 minus 5 is 3. Okay, always copy down your equal sign each time. You don't want to lose it. Now we are ready to take care of this 3, which is being multiplied. And so the inverse operation would be division. And so here, 3 divided by 3 is 1. So we have 1x equals, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So that is our final answer. And you can plug that 1 back into the equation. 3 times x plus 5 should equal 8. And sure enough, it does. Okay, for number 2, here's my equal sign. So I'm going to draw a line. Looking at the left side, there's just a 10. That's as simple as it can be. Looking at the right-hand side, there are no like terms to combine, no parentheses. We're ready to start isolating this variable p. And so there is a -2 in front of this p. We cannot do anything with that -2 until we take care of this 4, which is not attached. And so that is a positive 4. So even though there's a minus sign right here, it's not on the 4. The 4 is positive. So if we want that 4 to go away, we have to subtract the 4 to make a 0. And whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. And so 10 minus 4 gives me a 6 on the left-hand side. And then we still have this -2p on the right-hand side. Okay, now don't lose your negative sign. A lot of students do that. And so we are ready to get rid of this -2. Since we are multiplying by -2, we need to divide by -2. Don't lose negative signs. And so on the right-hand side, -2 divided by -2 leaves us 1. So we have 1p. And then 6 divided by -2 is a -3. And so my final answer is p equals -3. And on a test or a quiz, I would definitely plug that back in to check. All right, number 3. Here's our equal sign. And looking at the left-hand side, this time I have 5n and negative 1n. Those are like terms, and they are on the same side of the equal sign, and so I'm going to combine them. And so that leaves me with 4n. You don't want to do any inverse operations with variables that are on the same side. So do not change this to a plus n. A lot of students want to do that. When you're combining like terms, you don't change anybody's sign. All we are doing is simplifying this left-hand side first by combining those like terms. Okay, so the simplified left-hand side says 4n plus 6 equals 18. Now we're back to what we were doing on the other two. We are ready to isolate the n, and so leave the 4 alone, he's attached. We have to take care of this 6. And so we want to get rid of the 6 now, and so we are subtracting it from both sides. This is the step where we want to do inverse operations. That leaves us with 4n because 6 minus 6 is 0. And then 18 minus 6 would leave us with a 12. To get rid of the 4, we divide. 4 divided by 4 is 1n. 12 divided by 4 is 3. All right, now on number 4, this is the first one where we have variables on both sides of the equation. Whenever that happens, again, clean up each side of the equation before you start doing inverse operations. On the left side, there's nothing to combine. On the right side, there's nothing we can combine. There's no parentheses. Each side is as simple as it can be. And so I like to get the variable all on one side of the equation first. And so looking at this negative k over here, I'm going to add k to cancel it out on the right-hand side. I don't want k's on both sides. But whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. And I'm writing it under the 6k because that's the only term I can combine it with. I can't combine k with a 12. And so on the left-hand side of the equation, I now have 7k's. And we still have the plus 12. And then on the right-hand side, I have a 26 because we got rid of the k. Now we're back to what we were doing on the previous problems. We're ready to isolate this variable. We can't do anything with the 7 yet. We need to take care of this positive 12 by subtracting it. Ooh. Okay, left-hand side I have 7k. Right-hand side I have 14. I love it when the numbers work out nice. Divide both sides by the 7. 14 divided by 7 is 2. All right, that's the front side, the first 4. Back is getting even more difficult. Look at these. All right, so on number 5, there are 2 options. You can divide both sides by this 3 since it is outside the parentheses being multiplied. And so if I were to divide the entire equation by 3, it would cancel. Since this entire expression is being multiplied by 3, the inverse operation would be to divide the entire expression by 3, leaving us with z minus 1 equals, and then this 9 divided by 3 is 3. Last step would be to add 1, and then z equals 4. Another option and I always put a little bar on my z's, otherwise they tend to look like 2's, so that's why you see a little bar there. The other option is to distribute. We recognize that as a distribution problem, and so if I distribute the 3, I get 3z minus 3 equals 9. Same drill, we need to isolate the z term. And then divide by that 3. And we get z equals 4 in both cases. All right, number 6 has 2 sets of parentheses. I like using the distributive property, and so on each side of my equal sign, I'm going to take care of those distributions. So negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 2 times m is negative 2m. 4 times 2m is 8m. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. All right, again, I've got variables on both sides of the equation. And so you can get rid of these m's or you can get rid of these m's. It's completely up to you. Since I don't like negative numbers, I'm going to add 2m to both sides, and that would cancel out these negative 2m's. And so on the left-hand side, I only have that negative 4. On the right-hand side, I now have 10m minus 24. Okay, now we're ready to isolate the m term. So I have to get rid of that negative 24 by adding, leaving us with positive 20 on the left, 10m on the right. Let's keep this. And now we are ready to divide. Oh, sorry. I don't know how to pause to get that off. So m equals 2 for our final answer. All right, 7 and 8. These are our last two, and they're the hardest two. Okay, so starting with number 7. Find your equal sign and draw your line. And remember, we want to clean up each side of the equation first. And so just looking at this left-hand side, I see that I need to distribute this 8. So I have 3c that I have done nothing with, plus 8 times 2 is 16c. 8 times this negative 6 is negative 48. We don't have the option to just divide both sides by this 8 because we have this extra term hanging out. That's why I don't like that method. And then 2 plus 14c. That's an ugly 2. Okay. And so we're not done cleaning up the left-hand side yet because we've got some like terms here. And so 3c plus 16c, that's just 19c. I'm not doing any inverse operations yet. Just cleaning things up on each side. The more you clean up each equation before you solve it, the less mistakes you will make. All right, so then when you're solving an equation, you're really just cleaning up the equation one step at a time. Okay, so this is another situation where we have c's on both sides. And so I always like to work with a positive amount of c's. And so I'm going to get rid of these 14 c's so that I have 5c minus 48 on the left equals 2 on the right. Now we're ready to isolate the c term by adding 48. Got to take care of that 48 first, leaving us with 5c on the left, 50 on the right. I designed this worksheet to give us a bunch of nice numbers. Later, you're going to start getting fractions, so don't panic. C equals 10 in this case. All right, last one, hardest one. All right, so here's our equal sign. And I see parentheses, I see parentheses. So we need to clean up each side by doing the distributive property. Remember, if there's just a negative sign in front, there's an invisible -1 there. So I am distributing -1 to each of these two numbers. So I'm going to copy down that -5 I've done nothing with. -1 times 15 is -15y. -1 times this -1 is +1. Distribute this 2, gives me 14y minus 32. All right, and we are not done cleaning up. Parentheses are gone, but we've got like terms. Let's use the highlighter. I've got this -5 that can combine with this 1. And so we're not doing inverse operations. Don't change anybody's sign, just combine. And so -5 plus 1 is -4. If you're in debt $5 and someone gives you 1, you're now in debt 4. Okay, so the left-hand side becomes -4 minus 15y. On the right-hand side, we can combine this 14y with this -y for 13y. All right, so our equation's looking better and better every step. Now, each side is as clean as it can possibly be. We've gotten rid of all parentheses first. We've combined all our like terms. Now we're ready to get all of the y's on one side. And so I'm going to get rid of these -15y's by adding 15y. That's personal preference. I don't like working with negatives. And so on the left, I'm just left with -4. On the right, I'm left with 28y's. Okay, now here's our variable y. We need to get rid of this 32. -4 plus 32 is 28. And then our last step is to divide by 28. 28 divided by 28 is 1. So y equals 1 is our final answer.